Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Beyond Real Estate with Jalik. I am Jalen, and today with me we have a different Nick, not just Gumpert, who I will be referring to as Gump from now on, but also the fabulous Nick Shelton, who is a stand-up comedian as well as an author, which I don't want to spoil anything, but that's going to be today's business bookend. So stick around to hear exactly what we're going to be talking about that end. Gump, how is your week?
Week's good. Week's good. Actually had a little quick getaway, a spontaneous getaway. Came up, I think Sunday night, Monday morning, something like that. Off to Sedona, Arizona with Bree and Diego and my mother-in-law. So it was great. It was a great little getaway. And funny how sometimes you schedule to find a little break and then work pops in. Like, wow, I didn't and it wasn't work in a bad way to say, gosh, I hope I don't hear from that person. It was like I didn't expect that phone call. Um, but that's life sometimes. And so that was my week in a nutshell. We spent a couple nights out there, had a couple good spontaneous text messages and phone calls in the process. Found my way back to Cali in the wee hours of the morning this morning, and now we're off in meetings and follow ups here today, being a Friday. So, Jay,
Yeah, always on to the next.
yep,
And Nick, thank you so much for joining us today.
absolutely.
Really looking forward to a comedic approach to liven up beyond real estate. It's always we try to not talk too much business, so I'm really looking forward to your input and take on a lot of these topics. How was your week?
My week was, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And hopefully I don't disappoint on the humor, but my week was really good. It's not as good as the other Nicks. Mine was, my big challenge was I was looking for car washes. So usually around this time of year, the car washes will have like a sale that you can get a year pass or something for a discount. So then you can always have your car clean. And so nobody was running a sale though. So I'm going from different car wash to car wash trying to find the sale, and I was unsuccessful. So it was still a good week, but I still need to find a deal for car washes, and then I'll get it, and then I will have a clean car. So if you see me out in town with a dirty car, that is why I'm looking for.
There you go. At the very least, if someone just comes by and gives you a deal on a car wash, those are always hit and miss. I signed up for one of those once, and it was $35 a month for unlimited car washes. The first month went to two of them. I'm like, okay, it made it worth it. By month 8, I wasn't going at all, so I was just paying someone $38 to not even have a clean car. So uh yeah, that one is actually use the things you sign up for.
It's like
So
a gym membership, sort of. They hope that you don't actually come in.
yeah, which who really does after a while? And you're just like, I don't want to wake up early anymore, because gyms are never at a convenient time either. Whenever
Right,
you're wanting to go, it's either super early in the morning or super late at night. So
right.
well, today on hashtag Dad Life, we're going to be talking about how we learn at different times and in different models. So, um, is there a best way to do it? Is there a best way based on each person, or really does it come down to preferences? Um, Nick, and again, I'm referring to Nick Shelton as Nick throughout this episode, so anyone listening won't get confused, as well as our guest, Gump. I'm sorry to say that you lose your name for the next hour. But Nick, when you hear that, kind of what comes to mind with learning models and maybe how you learn versus how you were taught?
Right. Well, I think that there are differences between, with the personalities of the person, because some people learn by doing, some people learn by reading about it, some people learn by hearing. People have different learning styles, kind of like learning languages. But if for the dad mode, like I don't have any children myself, but I was a child, still kind of am. So for me, I know that, well, there were two main things. There's the the kind of threatening way of this is how you do this, where you think, okay, I shouldn't mess this up. Or there's like a couple of examples. So mowing the lawn. So if I was thinking, if I don't mow the lawn correctly, then he will say, well, he doesn't know how to mow the lawn. We'll just not have him do it. But no, it's, well, you're just going to keep mowing the lawn until you figure out how to mow it. And so even if you mess it up, you're still going to mow it. So through repetition is one, like, you will mow it until, I guess there's got to be a point in there somewhere where if I would have messed it up for a year, then I'm sure he would have stopped me at some point, just said, there's something wrong with you. You're not going to get this. But the repetition thing is one thing. Another, I think the best thing was the, if you make something into a game, like, and this doesn't work with teenagers, that you have to be really young for this. So like, my parents did the folding game. So when the laundry came out, they said, let's play the folding game. And you can fold the clothes the best. And they're like, you're so good at it. You always win. You're so great. And then I was like, man, I'm always winning the folding game. And then so whenever the clothes would come out of the dryer, they're like, stand back. You guys don't know what you're doing. I will fold these. And they're like, wow, yeah, you're the best. And so it took me years before I realized I was tricked, for that. And the same with like washing dishes and stuff. They're like, who can wash the dishes the best? Oh, can you beat your brother? And so, but you have to start really young, because if you start with teenagers, they're going to know that it's a trick. But young kids,
Something's up.
yeah. So I think that's the best way that I've seen. I know it worked for me, and when I've told other people, it seems to work for them. But you have to start young.
Well, when they're nice and malleable,
Yes.
you can kind of get away with that. Yeah. Gump, what were some things that I know Diego's a little too young. He's only 6 months old, so I don't know, unless you have maybe one of those baby Swiffers to where it's like that bodysuit that they put on and then they just kind of crawl around. That might be the only thing Diego can do at the moment. But what were some things that mom, dad decided to implement for you to get you to learn better, or even teachers?
Yeah. Well, I'll piggyback on the second part of it that you just alluded to, teachers, because I think that's an interesting facet, and where my mind was going to segue into was students, and in the hashtag dad life for us having kids. It's like, how do our kids learn best? Is it by watching? Is it by doing? Is it by listening? Is it by reading? Um,
Or by threat? just slap them up.
yeah. Well, I'll delve into the education space and say, in my opinion, I think it's purely preferences, right? Because you can't convince me that there's a best way for all kids, right? There's better ways for others. I just think it's an interesting argument and rabbit hole to go down to say which is the best one. And I think at the end of the day, there's a best one for individuals, not for classes of 30, right? Which I think all the more important to expose kids to various ones, right? And not just fall in love with listen to me, and now you're boring kids because they're listening to you, or they're not because they've tuned you out. In which case, how do you make it interactive so they're doing it, right? How do you mix that up so they're seeing it? How do you mix it up so they're reading about it a little bit and not listening to you, but they're reading a story of somebody else that was in that same situation or similar one as them? So that's where my head goes with some of those things.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I would say it's a mix and a match. I personally don't feel like I have a bias towards one. I enjoy reading, but not reading everything, right? I don't know that anybody that does. So as much as I enjoy reading, there's that experience phase, right? To say you learn by doing, you learn by experience. We're in this job, and you can't be an expert or think you're even going to come close to being an expert in this space by reading about it, right? There's some portion that you just have to do it. So,
yep, that repetition too that Nick already touched on is well, you can kind of learn or read, but you can also just do, and that trial by fire is sometimes just the best way to do it. It's like, well, good luck to you. You'll figure out your ways, and you'll stumble a lot, and that's always well, both of my kids are still in that toddler age, so I was on the phone yesterday with Monica, and she's sick right now. But every time she's sick, she sounds like Emma Stone. So I say that I'm just married to Emma Stone for a little bit and get her on the phone if I need to prove it. But she was telling one of the kids to not touch that because that's a wasp, and I was like, let him touch it. He'll only touch it once, and then he'll never mess with a bee or a wasp again. So we never have to remind him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my learning style with the kids. And it's also kind of the learning style that I enjoy, is that, gosh dang, when you have ADHD, you got to make things a little bit more fun. So that procrastination, in order to kind of up the ante of things, like, ooh, can I actually get it done quick enough? Probably not the best learning style, but it's pretty effective to get things done, just in the sense of schoolwork. But I always found you had to add some sort of fun element, for me at least. I've heard a few different things of, kind of having it, there being a reward of some sort, like an M&M on, I don't know how healthy this is, but an M&M on every paragraph in a book that you're needing to read. And then after you read that paragraph, you get to eat the M&M. I was like, oh, that might just add to the obesity epidemic, but well, more power to them. Or I would enjoy reading a science book, but then also switch it off with a sci-fi book. So some sort of fun, just thing that I wanted to read also. So when I'm like, gosh, this book is just boring and I can't read another chapter, it's like, well, now you get to read something fun and kind of still motivate you to read, and build that habit. So Nick, what was some maybe hacks or different styles that you learned worked better for you when learning versus kind of what was explained to you as the right way to do it?
Well, for me, I think it comes down to, and I think for most people, it's finding the motivation, what their motivation is. So it's different people are motivated by their different things. And we can go back to the punishment thing or the reward thing, the M&Ms. And for me, I found out that I'm motivated by competition because I had an older brother, 2 years older than me. And so we would compete with everything. And so I have to just beat him, trying to beat him. So if I knew that, and so even now in my life, when I'm doing any sort of like business type thing, I have to try to find someone else who's around the same level that I am. And I'm like, I just have to beat that person, so what are they doing? Now I have to do more to beat them. And so that's motivating. And then also, deadlines. So for me, deadlines, so if I don't have anyone to compete against, if I have a deadline, usually there's a lot of, slacking up to like when the deadline's coming up, and then I'm extremely productive. So I learned to move the deadlines in, and that way I can, instead of the actual deadline, maybe you can do a, a false deadline where you, but you stick with that deadline, say this needs to be done by this day.
And are you pretty good at holding yourself to those deadlines? I always seem to have, so maybe someone like me that has a problem with holding themselves to their own self-imposed deadlines. Any kind of things that you found work for you to actually hold yourself to those deadlines that you make for yourself?
Well, I'm pretty good at it. Well, yeah, if it is something where I know it really doesn't need to be done for 3 months, and then I'm saying it needs to be done at the end of this week, then yeah, doesn't have that same fear factor in it. So
yeah,
I try not to make it like that, but I'll do it maybe a week off of the actual deadline, or I might just use the actual deadline, because yes, it's hard to trick yourself, but, and the rewards thing for me, it's not, that doesn't really like, so the M&M thing wouldn't really work. Hey, you get this. Well, actually that's not necessarily true, because I was doing this hiking thing and there were a bunch of beautiful girls at the top of the mountain. I said to myself, well, I have to get there and I have to still be composed when I get to the top, because, I have to look cool. And, because if I don't make it all the way up, then no one's going to talk to me. No one wants to talk to some guy that didn't make it uphill. And, and if I look like I really struggled, trying to get some sympathy, but I don't want to be the guy getting sympathy. I want to be the guy that's like, hey. So I guess and I did get to the top of the hill and nothing happened. There was no,
you passed them as they were coming down or what?
it drove me to do it. So there is sometimes the reward system does work out. I don't even know if I answered the original question, but
No, I think you did. Yeah, I think you covered that well too, and I think others' perception of you is something that you covered too, as is a part of that reward system that we haven't touched on yet. So yeah, there's always that. We don't all go to the gym just to make ourselves look really cool, and like, yeah, I just really want to be buff. It's like I want people to recognize that I'm buff
right.
too. Like that's kind of a part of it. So yeah, that's external recognition.
Yes.
Um, Gump, you want to give your final thoughts and wrap us up with this particular segment?
My final thoughts would go back to, depends what reference you're trying to answer the question for. You know, again, is it education based? Is it personal based? What age are we talking about? I think at the end of the day, it's important to be exposed to all of it, though, versus just think that because you have a bias towards one, that's the answer to solve all your situations, right? Just because I like to learn by doing, in some cases, sometimes it is better to listen in some scenarios that we find ourselves in sometimes. So I think that's my big takeaway to wrap this one up. Nick, do you have anything to add?
I would just say, yeah, if you could figure out, so dads or parents out there that are trying to get their kids to do a certain thing, teach them a certain way. If you can find what the motivation is, because everyone has different ones, then you will be a lot farther ahead than other people, because then you can use that to help turbocharge them in the right direction.
Brilliant.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So then, on that note, I think we will take a quick break. Join us back for the real estate roundup, where we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency and NFTs. I don't know if this is going to be a non-lively debate. This is, I think, we'll actually some fireworks might be flying. So join us back here in just a few seconds.